Yeah, thank you very much. Indeed, we're going to do something else today. So if we look at Experlogix, there's two product lines that we have. And on the one hand side, that's indeed CPQ. So everything that has to do with product configuration and quoting complex products or complex services. So that's one thing. And the other product line that we have has to do with document automation. So everything that has to do with creating and delivering documents from your Dynamics 365 and Power Platform environments. So that's basically what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to focus on the document automation side of things. So myself, I'm Erwin. I'm a product manager for the document automation side at Experlogix, and I'm happy to be here. So we are going from Italy to Belgium. I'm located in Belgium in a city called Antwerp, which is north of Belgium, close to the Dutch border. And that's all I want to have to do with the Netherlands, by the way. That's a joke. I like him a lot, the people from the Netherlands. So what are we going to talk about today? So obviously, we're going to say a few words about Experlogix. We're going to zoom into the why, the what and the how of document automation. We have two products in that space, which are called Experlogix Smart Flows and Portal. Just briefly introduce those products. And then I want to get out of this PowerPoint presentation as soon as possible and jump into some live demoing. So the weather is not that good here in Belgium. So flying conditions are not perfect, but I hope to be lending a smooth session with you guys nevertheless. All right, so I hope to leave some time for questions and answers in the end of the session as well. But feel free to raise your hand at any time. I cannot promise I will notice it, but I hope to be, to have some time left at the end of the session to address all of your questions. So let's start with something else, like a paradox that a lot of that we often come across, and you probably kind of feel that as well, or come across that as well. You with your customers, or maybe you're in such a situation yourself, where you get confronted with increasing complexity yourself in a faster and faster moving world, and then when it comes to your customer, obviously you want to provide a very simple, straightforward, easy solution and experience that is predictable, is accurate, is smooth every time and all of the time. So it's kind of a paradox. So as things get more complex, the simpler you want to make it for your customer. And most of the companies that are faced with challenges like these try to find resolutions, find relief or solace in automation. So basically, that's what we see, and that's what we help you with also at Experlogix. And as I mentioned, so basically what we do, the way we try to unlock workflow velocity and create better customer experience is focusing on two areas. So there's the CPQ side, the quoting side, and the product configuration side, and then there is the document automation side. We have been pretty successful over the years in simplifying and humanizing complex products and processes, and we are very blessed and very humble and happy to be working for great customers and with great partners. And yeah, we've been in these in both these spaces for quite some time. So that about Experlogix briefly. We're going to zoom into document automation. So that's everything that has to do with generating and delivering transactional documents. Think about your quotations, but also think about reports maybe that you want to send out. Think about order confirmations. Think about all sorts of HR documents, maybe contracts and so on and so forth, agreements. Think about invoices and that sort of stuff. So all transactional documents that you can imagine. Why would you care about automating these? Well, Obviously, this has to do with kind of the main keywords that you see there: productivity, consistency, reusing the data that you have in your Dataverse environment, compliance with rules and regulations. So these are the obvious ones, right? So productivity, there's a big productivity increase. I mean, so much time is spent on handcrafting documents. Consistency, think of all of the mistakes that you can make if you manually copy and paste data. Think of issues in terms of using the right branding principles and so on and so forth if you're doing a lot of things manually. We had customers that, where consistency was really key to implement our solutions. For instance, just because of the language that was being used, where there was a bank in the UK where some of their employees were just not using language that was up to par with, the language that the bank wanted to be in those documents. So consistency in style and register and so on and so forth. There's a lot of things, consistency there. Compliance, think also about things like accessibility of documents. If you base your documents off of templates that are built to be accessible, then probably you will do a better job as an organization trying to be accessible and compliant with the policies that you have around accessibility. So yeah, important things, important reasons why to invest. And the question is, how should you invest in automating your documents or your document generation and delivery? Well, probably the best way to do it is to do it in such a way where you can really empower your business users to also play a part in that. Microsoft and not only Microsoft, but a lot of software vendors have invested a great deal in making or in taking a collaborative approach to process automation. Collaborative approach in the sense that IT and business users, developers and business users now can collaborate much better than they used to in the past on the automation of all sorts of processes. And why should your document-centric processes be an exception to that rule? So make sure you select tools that kind of tap into that tendency to go low code or even no code. I think it makes a lot of sense. Make also sure that you go for systems that are very much integrated and that are able to integrate all sorts of services that you may already use today. For instance, also to deliver documents to your customers. All right. So if we look at the document automation process, this is a little bit the how. We talked about the what and the why. This is the how of document automation. So basically, the process comes down almost every time to three big steps. There's a data collection step in the process. There's a document generation step, and there is typically also a storage and delivery step in the process. So let's talk a little bit about those steps. So data collection, first of all, obviously you want to be able to reuse the data that you have in your systems of record. And if you're tech savvy, maybe you can, use an API to connect to post requests to passing, for instance, a JSON payload or an XML payload that can be used to actually merge into a template and generate a document. But the good thing about the solutions, at least that we have available, is that there are also plug-and-play connectors. Plug-and-play connectors to systems inside the ecosystem, inside the Dynamics ecosystem and the Power Platform. So Experlogix has been investing a lot in the past decades into the Microsoft ecosystem. So we have connectors to the main applications there, where it be like the sales applications in the dynamic space of or ERP applications like F&O, for instance, but also things like your model-driven Power Apps or your Power Automate flows. We can tap into those as well. Obviously, we also have connectors outside of the Microsoft Dynamics ecosystem. You could say that wherever there is data, we try to have plug-and-play connectors. Typically in such processes, and I'll demo that as well, at some point, maybe also a user wants to provide input. Imagine situations where, for instance, a user is being asked a couple of questions like, hey, you want to generate this quotation. Do you want to insert this or that paragraph in there? Do you want to maybe, for instance, insert a section with terms and conditions? Do you want to add a little personal note at the beginning of the document? Please type it up here. So that sort of thing can also be accomplished by adding web forms that can be presented to the user at runtime when you are going through a document generation and delivery process. We have a form builder for that will allow you to create those forms very easily. I'll show you how that works as well. By the way, I told you about the process. When we are creating a process to collect data, to generate a document, and to store and deliver that document, then that process, we try to offer an experience where that is built in a visual manner, so that you don't have to code that flow, but you can just build that flow by dragging and dropping predefined steps onto a canvas. Pretty much like what Power Automate is actually doing. Document generation is going to be the second block. Obviously, when you have collected data, you want to kind of marry that data with a blueprint of a document, which would be a template to generate a document. Before you can do that, obviously, you need a template. So there are experiences. We actually have 2 template design experiences that you can choose from. Both are integrated with Microsoft Word. There's a template designer experience and a template builder experience. The builder experience is very much triggered towards non-technical users. I'm going to demo it a little bit today as well, where you can actually extend the familiar Word features with template design features. For instance, to create placeholders where data will be merged, but also to create business logic, like for instance, conditional blocks. For instance, also auto expanding tables, stuff like that. Right? So that's the template builder part. And then, so we're in the document generation part. Obviously, when the document is generated, it's generated into a certain format. You can convert it to a different format if you want to. You can set all sorts of document settings in terms of, for instance, optimizing your document later for storage, reducing the size, and so on and so forth. And what else? You could protect it by adding passwords and so on and so forth. Once the document has been generated, you probably want to deliver that document to somebody who has an interest in the document, and maybe also store it. Now, the delivery, there's some out-of-the-box features around that, just to email the document, for instance, or to send it to a printer and so on and so forth. But obviously, in this day and age, we typically also want to offer documents or provide documents, deliver documents for e-signing. And in order to do that, rather than building our own e-signing functionality, we thought it would be wise to integrate with the leading applications in that field. So there's connectors for DocuSign, for Adobe Sign, for OneSpan Sign, and for everybody else who plays an important role in that field. Storing the document afterwards, and that can be the document that is generated, but can also be, for instance, the document that is returned by the e-signer provider as the signed document. These can be stored in SharePoint with plug-and-play connectors that we have for SharePoint, but we also have our own Experlogix branded content management solution, which is called Content Manager, and there you can easily store your generated documents as well. You can print your documents in the cloud. You can add your local printers to the environment as well. So there's quite a lot of things you can do. All right. So that's the document automation process. We have a couple of applications. We have two main applications that support that flow that I just described to you. And the most important one is smart flows. I'm going to spend most of the time talking about smart flows today and demonstrating smart flows mainly. So that's our kind of flagship application in terms of creating those flows that I talked about. You can see that in the back, but I'm going to show you a couple of those live. And it has those connectors to your applications, to your Dynamics and Power Platform applications to really start those document generation processes. It comes with an add-in for Microsoft Word, which is called Template Builder. And Template Builder is that straightforward, easy to use, intuitive template design experience. What else? We have Portal. Portal is actually an application that also comes with a template design experience where you have some more advanced capabilities on top of what you can achieve with Template Builder. They're more developer oriented as well, and then the difference also between Portal, the Portal technology and Smart Flows is that Portal has quite a few features that are more directed towards very big volumes of documents that should be processed, like batch processing of documents, as opposed to Smart Flows, which is very much focused on demand, one-by-one document generation. Portal also comes with a form design feature. You can see it in the back there, where you can easily create forms that could be presented to users or even to external people during a flow execution. All right. So, but rather than looking at screenshots, I think some live action would be a good idea. So I'm going to take it out of this PowerPoint presentation and actually jump into a Dynamics environment. So let's do that. This is not where I wanted to go. This is where I wanted to go. So we are right now in Microsoft Dynamics 365 in the Sales Hub. It's one of those first-party apps that Microsoft is providing to us. Unfortunately, my interface is in plain old English. I wish it was in Dutch or in Italian. That would be refreshing as well. But here you go. So basically, let's start from a quote, and let's run some document generation for that quote. So we have this solar panel quote right here, and for that quote, you can see here that we have two Smart Flows buttons. Typically, you can choose which one you want. There's a flyout button here, and there's a regular button right here. If you use this one, then it will always show you a selection of relevant flows for this record type, this entity, in this case, the quote entity, inside the Smart Flows user interface. If you use the other experience, you can actually have a drop down and see a pre-selection of relevant flows for this specific entity right here in this interface. It kind of saves you one click if you use this interface, right? So let's do that one, and let's generate a simple or let's start a simple flow. All of these things are flows. So these are the flows that we have created in this Smart Flows project for the quote entity. There are other flows that are available on the account entity, and I will show you one of those later on. So let's start very simple. Imagine you are a salesperson. You wanted to send out a quotation real quickly. You're working on a quote, for instance, and you want to send this to your manager, maybe real quickly, to show him him or her what you are actually working on, or you want to quickly send it to the customer. That's all possible with this quick flow here to generate that email. So basically what it does, it will flash the screen a couple of times, and then it will tell you that it successfully ran this flow called email quote summary. This flow will create an email. We have received it over here. And that email will just basically, maybe I'll just copy it out. There you go. This email will contain a table of the items in this quotation. As you can see, you can bring in pictures. In this case, those pictures live on an FTP server that we connect to, and there you are. So you see the overview, you see the amounts, we see the approximate budget, and so on and so forth. All right, so that's basically a very, very simple example of a quotation or of a flow where you just basically take that that record, pull some data from the record, but also bring in data from related records, and also bring in data that resides elsewhere, like the pictures. Obviously, this is the result of a template, as you could imagine, where you just basically use that template and use it to fill up the body of that email. All right, so let's get back into our Dynamics environment. To the right one. This one. All right. So so that was like a first simple flow. We can take it one step further and do a formal quote. This formal quote, and this is kind of to give you an idea of how powerful this actually can go. I will or can be, and I will take you to the design experience behind all of this later on during the session. But this is a quotation, or this is a flow where we will not only generate a quote, but before we do so, we will ask the user a couple of questions to allow that user to interfere or interact with how the final document that we will be producing would actually look like. So that's a first thing that we're doing here. After that, we will send out the document via an email to the customer in question. But not only that, we will also save the document in SharePoint, in the SharePoint document location related to the record here in question. Yeah, that we start from the solar panel quote record in Dynamics. So that's also something that we're going to do, and I do believe that we will also create a note on the timeline of the quote record where that document is also added as an attachment. Obviously, you don't have to do all of these things. You can just do a selection of things, or you can do other things. But this is just to indicate that one such flow, such smart flow, can do a lot of those steps. Let's run it, see what happens. So basically, same thing again. So we open up we call it the flow execution panel. And as you can see here, we get some questions. One of the questions that is asked is, you want to include some product information. Yeah, why not? So this is going to bring in like spec sheets and stuff like that we have on those products. In our scenario, those spec sheets live on an FTP server that we connect to. But it's perfectly imaginable that these live, for instance, in SharePoint, and you bring them in from there, or that you have them somewhere stored in Dynamics, and that you go into the product records from there, or into the records where they live, and then pull them from node attachments or wherever they live in your Dynamics environment. Another question here, do you want to include the terms and conditions? Let's say yes to that. There's also this additional text, like something for a thank you letter. We could type something like, thank you very much, and grazie mille. There you go. Much as an H. You can format this, you can do the entire thing in bold. You can, do the Italian part, why not, in green. Let's do that like that. And then this is how it's going to be printed. There's more questions here that we can ask, like, do you want to exclude something like the images and so on and so forth. But we're going to skip that part. Just hit next here. The form input will now be used to actually generate that document. So we're doing a couple of things. We're getting the data. We created that email. We also created the node, and we have also stored the document in SharePoint. Okay, so that's all of that is stuff that we have done. Let's see if we already have the email that's come in. Just give that a second. Do a send and receive. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer for that email to arrive, but no worries. We're not going to wait for it. I can actually switch it back over here. We have a link to the generated document, so I can open it from that link as well, and then we can have a look here. So basically, this is a document that we created. Let me take you or walk you through it real quickly. So this is like an opening page that we have right here, and it starts with thank you and some support. And as you can see, we have our beautiful text that we added right here. Thank you very much and grazie mille. That's what we just typed. And as you can see, also the formatting of that text that we provided is neatly taken over in our document. Scrolling further on down, you see we have our table that we saw earlier, but in this case, it's also bringing like product numbers and stuff like that. This is connecting also into an additional data set for a product. What is that called again? A product management database, like a product lifecycle management solution, for instance, where you have the same product IDs or product numbers in it. You can actually create relationships to that environment and bring extra data on those projects. You see totals. Interesting thing here is that you can see that there are 2 lines here in the total section. Actually, in the template, there is a third row here, which contains a calculated discount. Now, if our customer is not getting a discount, we skip that row with a simple condition. It's really easy to define such a condition. And it's, ever so polite, of course, not to indicate that there is a discount row if your customer is not getting that discount. Okay, scrolling on down, we see, so we said yes to the question, do you want to insert those products, that product information? So these are actually spec sheets that we bring in for the different products that we have in our quotation. So we have like solar panels, and we have a heat pump, and we have a boiler here as well. And there's another solar panel coming up. There you go. And then we also said yes to the question, do you want to include the terms and conditions? So there you go. So we see those general terms and conditions. So yeah, there we are. So basically, this is kind of an indication as to what you can achieve in that single click. Because we have created this document, we have set some preferences for this document. We have not only done that, but we also have sent an email with this document as an attachment. Let me just check again whether it has arrived meanwhile. There you go. So this is actually the email right here, and this is the quotation that we just looked at in attachment to that email. So let's take it back now over here. So what else did we do? We created a note also in Dynamics with the document attached, and we have posted the document also to SharePoint. So if we go back into our flow execution panel, you can see that. You can also see the link to the document in SharePoint. So this is going to show us the same document, but as you can see here on SharePoint. Okay. Right, so back to our quote, and let's take it one step further, okay? And then we're gonna move away from the quotes, and we're gonna show something else. But final run here, I thought you guys were already scared that I would do all of these. But just one more, and that is the send for eSign, where we will show off the integration that we have with DocuSign. There's quite a few other e-signing providers that we integrate with, like Adobe Sign, like OneSpan Sign. Certify is another one. We're building in an integration with Notarius currently, so that's a Canadian e-signing provider that is pretty big there. But okay, so this one is working with DocuSign. So what we're going to do here is do the same thing, generate that same or similar quotation, but instead of delivering it through email, what we're actually going to do now is send it for signing. All right, through DocuSign. So we do it. Just hit that button. What happens? We are running our flow. We're generating a document. Next up, we're going to send it to DocuSign. And the interesting thing that you're going to see now is that the flow gets into a waiting state right now. So we are waiting. We are interrupting our flow execution. Because somebody needs to take action, and the person that needs to take action obviously is the person that has now received this this invitation by DocuSign to actually go on and to go on and sign this quotation so we can continue with our process. So let's have a look whether we have received that email from DocuSign. Here it is. So it says here, please let me download these pictures here. So from DocuSign, we have received this, this document envelope where we are invited to review and sign. So let's do that. Let's review the document. Let's open it up. And then hit continue. And there we are. You see some ugly red print here because we are using a DocuSign sandbox to demonstrate this. But we have the same documents, but let's take it all the way to the place where we have to sign it, as you can see. And you can just hit sign, and that will include or inject your DocuSign e-signature. You can just finish it up, and there you go, document signed. So good stuff, but there's more to it. The flow will actually, the flow will actually also continue. Where is my flow? Here is my flow. So as it says here, it's waiting for this external event from the send to DocuSign step. If it would just not touch it, it would, check from time to time where something happened, and at some point it will automatically continue. But we can also give it a hand and hit refresh, and then the flow will continue. So it will now take this DocuSigned document. So it will continue with the signed document, and it will take that document to add it to a note in the record that we started the entire process from. In this case, that's the solar code record or solar panel record. And let's have a look. So we have this final sign code, solar panel code sign, blah, blah, blah. So here we are. We can open this up, and this is actually the document that we have just signed. It should have my signature on it, as you can see it. So this is what we just did a second ago. All right. So that's I think that's pretty cool and very straightforward from a user perspective. It's just simply, hit the button to start a flow, and then the flow will totally execute. By the way, if you click the other button here, it will provide you an interface where you can choose a flow first. Okay? And then if you want to, we haven't done it here, but if you want to, you can also provide some extra context, provide some description with your flow, so the user can first actually read up what's actually going to happen when he or she is running this flow. You also see a thumbnail, like a preview of the template that is going to be used in this flow execution. There's quite a few flow steps that we haven't used so far. One of those, or some of those flow steps, have to do with approval processes. So you can, before you send out a document to customers and so on and so forth, you can preview it, but we skipped those in the demo so far. All right. I'm going to show you one more from Dynamics CE, from the sales and marketing kind of applications, and I'm going to take it to F&O just for a second to show you an ERP flow, and then I'm going to stop showing flows, and we're going to take it to the backside of things. We have then about 15 minutes left in the session, and then I'm going to show you how you can set all of this stuff up. All right, so let's do that. Let's move from our quotation record into an account record, like City Power and Light. And we're going to do the same thing. In this case, we're going to have a different selection of flows. As you can see, we have account notes attachment, address validation, and so on and so forth. These are totally different flows. One of the things that we can do now is run this address validation flow, for instance. Let's do that. This is going to do quite something else. So far, we've just generated documents and so on and so forth. Here, we get something different. We get a link to a form, an anonymous form that whoever receives this link can go to and fill out. So I'm going to do that right now by clicking the link over here. There will also be an email that will be sent to my email address where I can pick up that link. But we see something else here. Namely, what it's going to do it actually is going to show a smart flow that picks up all of the data that has to do with the address of the account in question in this Dynamics record, in your Dataverse record, your account record. It's going to pick up that. It's going to pick up all of that information and show it here in the form of a web form that can be filled out. Say that I want to update my information or change my information. I can do that in the form, like do 1, 2, 3, or right, messing things up. Do like, yeah, whatever, 5, 5, and then up 1, 2, 3. There you go. And then what else can I do? Like, for instance, I'm going to change the postal code from 10 to 05, for instance, right here. And then I'm going to submit this, right? So it says, hey, your form has been submitted, and we can continue with the rest of our life and close this page. But what it actually will have done also is, if I refresh the page, and you can see that the old stuff is the 5, 6, 7, 8 is still here, and the 9,010 or 90,010 is still here. But it will also update our Dynamics environment and our Dynamics record. As you can see, I did something very strange here with the phone number, but it is being carried out, as you can see, and you'll also see that 90,005 is here in the zip code. So what we have done now is, instead of just generating documents and so on and so forth, there's also a document that will be generated in this process, by the way, because there's also this address confirmation PDF that we have generated in as part of the process, where we see the old address values and the new address values right here. But rather than just use this for document generation, you can also use it for, that sort of purposes, where you give your customer, for instance, access to some of the data you have on that customer, and then allow the customer to override that data, or to change and update that information. Okay. Here, it was just through a smart form. You can also do that with the integration that we have with DocuSign, because there you also can include DocuSign form fields, as we call them, in your DocuSign envelope, and then pick up whatever values you have, and then those values will be used. Okay, so one last flow, show you something from within F&O. I saw that my session expired, so let's see if we can wake it up real quick. There you go. So same thing over here. Now we're in F&O. We are starting, in this case, we are starting from a sales order, and same thing here. We have a similar button right here in F&O, where we can run an order confirmation flow. Cool thing about this flow is that it also will include, this was a very, very fast one, as you can see. It will also pick up some data from not only from F&O, but also from the Dynamics CE environment, where it will add a note in the CE environment, in the record, the account record, that is related to the sales order in F&O. That went really fast, but actually, if I take it to the CE environment and I take it to the account in question, it is this account. Well, for this account, you'll see that we just created a note like just seconds ago to 47. That's like less than a minute ago, where we have the sales order confirmation document that has been produced out of F&O. All right. So that's what I wanted to show you from the front side, from the end user's perspective. Let's now quickly go to the to two more perspectives. There's going to be the perspective of the designer and also the administrator. Let's do the administrator first, who is basically going to build connections to like different systems, like for instance, a DocuSign connection, that Dynamics 365 CE connection, the F&O connection, and so on and so forth. Those are all OAuth-based connections, which are super easy to set up. It's just there's a wizard to set up such connections all the time. And then once you have set up such a connection, you can start creating data sets. So let's do that. Let's create such a data set. Let's call it demo ABC. Oops. There you go. And you can choose here which connector you want to, or sorry, which type of data set you want to create. It could be a custom data set, could be a schema data set if you want to just upload an XSD file, for instance. Could be a smart form, could be such a DocuSign form data set. It could be like a Microsoft Dynamics 365 CE or an F&O data set. Let's do a CE one. Which will, and then we can select our primary entities. This is through an OData integration that we, kind of fetch all of the entities that we have. And let's, for instance, start this from the quote, entity, and then we can just create our data set. And it's also like most of the things that we do, it's going to be a very straightforward process to do that. By default, we'll pick up all of the fields from quote. You can select which fields you want to keep and which fields you want to drop. You can select one-to-many relationships, as many as you want. For instance, if you want to pick up the potential customer, you can go to that account. You can do one-to-many relationship. For instance, if you want to do those the quote lines, the quote details, there you go. You select them, and there you are. So from the quote details, you can continue to build, right? So if you want to go to the actual product that is the existing product that is underneath, you can take it to the product records from the product record from there. So there you go. So hit save. You have created a data set right now. That's how simple it is. And now you can use that data set when you're creating a template, which is going to be the second step. And then the final step is that you're going to create such a flow. So templates. When you create a template, you can link it to the templates. To the data sets that you have created. But you can connect your templates to multiple data sets, as you can see. So it's just real simple to create such a template. Just go through a create modal, and you'll end up on a page like this. And then from here, you can click design. That will download the file in the language variant of your choice. You can set up the system to support multiple languages. There's 4 languages set up in this project here, but we'll open the template up for English. We can hit design, and that will actually download the file as a Word file. You can open it up, the docx, and that will bring up Word. I already have the file open here, and here it is. So this is the file in question. This is the Word template, and here you see the template builder experience, where a template design profile can actually go on and design the template. So let me just briefly show you a couple things here. So basically what you see is that you see the template that is opened up in the main canvas in Word. This is our template that we've been using throughout this session. You see an overview of the templates. You can click this. You will see that there's a list of all the templates in the project. You can open up a different one if you want to. But you see, like the main ribbon where you can change from one language to the other, where you can create like barcodes and QR codes and stuff like that, include your images, do formula, create a chart based on aggregated data, for instance, that you have, and these kind of things. You can do your e-signature placeholder field. Specifically for DocuSign, we have this form field section where you can add form fields, and then there's the publish button here. Once you have you're finished designing, you can actually publish your template, and there's a full versioning system, as you can see. So you can roll back to an earlier version of your template if you messed up, and so on and so forth. There's the pane on the right here, or the section on the right where you see 3 tabs. There's a dataset tab that shows the different data sets that you have connected to this template, and then you can start mapping fields from here in there. So this is, for instance, one of those mappings. If you click it, it will kind of bring the focus to that field, and so on and so forth. So that's basically how that works. So that's the dataset tab. The mapping tab will show you the result of all of your mappings. This is an overview of all your mappings that you have, and also conditions and loops. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. And then there's a style tab where you can predefine a couple of styles as well that you want to apply. Inside the dataset tab, you have a couple of items. So if you simply want to map something, you can actually use this first button. If you want to make something conditional, you can basically use the condition icon. There's a loop icon to create a loop. You can group that loop. That's to, for instance, order products in a product table per product category and stuff like that. You can do subtotals per category and sorting and so on and so forth. There's going to be pseudo fields, pseudo relationships, result sets, like those are result sets are like filtered one-to-many relations and more that you can add. So you can actually go crazy in terms of manipulating the data that is coming from the data sets in your template. What I really quickly want to show you is a condition because it's super easy to show you. So I'm going to do one here, and for instance, this part of the item here or the template here, I'm going to make that conditional just to show you how simple it is. It's a three-step process. So first of all, we go into our dataset tab and we select a field that we want to use in our condition. And maybe in this case, one of the things that we could use here is, for instance, the state address province field. And there's also a sample connected to this this data set, so that allows us to see some sample data for this field. So we see that the state sample value here is Georgia. So that is what we see over here. But we're going to use that field in a condition. So step one, select the field that you want to use in the condition. Step two, hit the condition tab or the condition button, and that will bring up this condition wizard where you can choose how you want to set up your condition. And the most common use is to check whether a field has a specific value. Well, which field? The field you selected, the state or province field, that is. We're going to use it as text, and we're going to set the the operator here to equal to. We'll do that. And instead of Georgia, I'm going to do something like MI here. That's Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. So I can click OK here. And now this section, as you can see, is conditional. It has this conditional box around it. Also, if we go into the mappings, you will see that now there is this this diamond that indicates that this is a conditional field, right? So if we run a preview at this point, you can also preview whatever time you want. And we're previewing for for a sample record which has Georgia as the value for the state, rather than, whoops, we saw an error there, that has Georgia as the value for the state and not Michigan. So what we see is that indeed this paragraph that we saw earlier is now not part of the generated document in preview. All right. So that's that in terms of template design. There was one final thing I wanted to show you, and that is the actual flows. So once you set up your templates, so you have your data set, you have created your template, and now you're going into flows. And the flow, just as a reminder, is the process that we actually want to show, or sorry, want to create. That goes through all of those steps that will be carried out. Okay, and we have a visual builder for that. Let's pick up the flow where we started from Dynamics. You can also start, for instance, from another program, meaning that we're going to do like a web service call to start to execute the flow. We can start from Dynamics, that's what we're doing here, but you can also start from Finance and Operations, or you can start straight from the flow execution panel. Right, so in this flow, what we're doing is we are asking the customer or the user a couple of questions. These were the questions like, hey, do you want to include the terms and conditions? Do you want to include the product information and so on and so forth? So these are the questions that we were asking there. And then we're picking up the quote information. We're also picking up some information about the user. So these are actually 3 data sets that we collect data from first. Next up, there's a generate documents tab where we are choosing a template. This is Limo user input product template. That's the one that we have been playing around with. Also in the designer, we kind of see where the data is coming from. So as you can see, if I scroll over it, the box in the canvas highlights. So there you go. These are the data sets that kind of feed this template to generate the document. Once we have generated the document, we're going to email it. You can see there's an email SMTP step here, but we can also use the email mechanisms that are built into Dynamics CE and F&O and other applications we integrate with. We create a node after that, and then we use a SharePoint connector to also store the document in SharePoint. If we look at that SharePoint instance, for instance, you can see that we can also set metadata. You can set your column name. You can define the type, the sort of formatting that is of the field, and then a value for that metadata column. You can choose whether you want to create a new version of the file if it already exists, or overwrite and stuff like that. All right, and then this always generates a flow output where you can find the generated documents, any other like outputs that have been created, like a note, for instance, or a link to SharePoint, or a DocuSign envelope, and so on and so forth. So that's that kind of concludes what I wanted to tell you. If you're interested, we can deep dive into more steps, like for instance the connection with Power Automate to update that record in Dynamics that you saw me do earlier. There it gets really fancy, and you know, there's kind of a lot of steps that we hang on. There's kind of a lot of steps that we can actually set here. As you can see, we have like this overview. There's some controls. You can build conditional branches. You can build switches in there. You can save the file, print, do an approval process, send to DocuSign as you saw. You can start a document service, which is something which is kind of a customization that we have built for you. That's something that we can do as well. You can store in Content Manager, which is our own alternative, so to speak, to SharePoint. You can email and so on and so forth. There's Dynamics CE specific steps. There's finance and operations steps, as you can see. And then there are some general steps as well, where you can display a message to the user, where you can stop a flow, where you can read document properties and fetch whatever you need from there. And then this is an interesting one. If you want to interact with Power Automate, for instance, you can send an HTTP request through an HTTP connector to call an external service and pass whatever data you want to pass as the body, for instance, of a post. All right, I think that's what we have time for, more or less, and I'm happy to open it up for questions here.
Thank you, Erwin. There is a question here by Kevin asking, okay, so it's Kevin mentioning this is the Expert Doc app that you can install. It is an add-on. So it was Ravi's question, what app is this? Is it built on top of D365 or part of D365? So I think it's more about, so I don't know if you want to answer that question, Erwin.
Yeah, so basically it lives on its own environment. So it's a server application that we deploy on Azure. We still support on-premises deployments as well, but let's talk future. So our cloud deployments live on Azure, and you basically set up, or we set up an environment for you on your on that Azure environment, and then you basically connect your Dynamics environment over there. So that means We offer a managed solution for dynamic CE, for instance, that you can deploy there, and then you can basically connect from CE to your project that lives on Azure. And we have an ISV package for FNO as well that you can use to build an all-in-one deployable package that you can push into your FNO environment as well. So that's how it works.
Thank you, Erwin. Erwin, could you share your contact details in the chat so that anyone who has questions can keep in touch with you?
Absolutely, happy to do that.
Thank you so much, Erwin, and you've ended in good time as well. So I want to thank you, Erwin, for joining us from Belgium. Huge round of applause, and hope to see you in person very, very soon.
Yes, would be very nice. I'm going to stop sharing the screen if you didn't take it away from me already.
Thank you, Erwin. Fantastic. So we now are on to our next session.